We have 8 expressions this evening. The first expression, I'd like to call upon the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Commissioner Bob Paulson. Mr. Paulson. Thank you.
Permit me to acknowledge the traditional Treaty 6 territory on which we gather for this significant event. Commissioners, Minister Valcourt, Premier Hancock, Minister Oberle, Mayor Nenshi, elders, distinguished guests, survivors of the residential schools, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say how grateful I am for the opportunity to be able to participate in the Commission's work seeking truth and inspiring healing. Thank you for this opportunity. In 2004, the R.C.M.P. formally apologized for the part it played in the Indian residential school system. In 2011, the R.C.M.P. appeared before this commission and tendered a report that spelled out what we did. But what did we do? One way to understand what we did is to read the report, where we say, among other things, that we were the police of jurisdiction in many areas where schools operated. We were expected to respond to requests to enforce the law, as it then was, which included transporting students to the schools, searching for, apprehending, and returning students who ran away from school, locating families who refused to send their children to school and informing them of their obligations. Another way to understand what we did is how I came to understand what we did. In 1992-1993, I was the lead investigator in northwestern British Columbia for the National Residential School Investigation. I personally interviewed many survivors of the residential school system, so I know what we did. It is perhaps best illustrated by a story I've told many times to help people understand what it is we are talking about. Having concluded almost all of the work on the investigation, I was having difficulty locating one particular survivor who I believe to have been the victim of sexual assault at a school on Vancouver Island. Wanting to move the investigation along, I worked hard to find him, and ultimately I did so. He was living on the streets of Terrace, British Columbia. Sadly, he had succumbed to the ravages of alcoholism and drug addiction. He was in a bad way when I found him. He hadn't eaten, washed, or slept properly for weeks. He was a wreck. He was brought to the detachment. We cleaned him up and fed him. I then met with him in an interview room. I smoked in those days, so we had coffee and cigarettes as I explained the nature of the investigation and what it was I was looking to him for. He was receptive and cooperative, and so over the next several hours, we literally unpacked his life, one tragic chapter after the other, starting with being forced from home and into the residential school for the very first time. The fear, the confusion, and the terror he experienced as a young boy trying to deal with what was happening to him had not left him, and he had no trouble describing it all to me. We talked about that. We talked about the routines of the school, the buildings, the people, the smells, the sounds, the hallways, the beds, the memories. He eventually described in terrible detail being sexually assaulted by staff at the school and the sheer and utter horror of that experience. Because of it, he ran away. He went home. But we went and found him, and we brought him back. No one would listen to him, and if we did listen to him, we didn't hear him. He ran away again, but smart guy that he was, he knew not to go home because we'd find him again. So he went to the streets, and in order to survive on the streets, he got involved in crime. Petty crime, drugs, and street life. Eventually, he got caught. He was sent to reform school. The cycle continued until the schools became prisons. And one day he found himself to be an adult, caught up in the nightmare that had become his existence. There came a moment in that interview room when the two of us experienced a joint clarity of understanding of his victimization that emotionally overcame both of us. What had happened to him? Where had his life gone? Who did this to him? I took his hand, and in tears and with great shame, I said I was sorry for what had happened to him. And I say to you all here today, as Commissioner of the R.C.M.P., on behalf of the R.C.M.P., on behalf of the men and women who comprise the R.C.M.P. and have ever comprised the R.C.M.P., I'm deeply sorry for what has happened to you and the part my organization has played in it. Regretfully, we can't change the past. We can, however, move forward together and try to heal. The R.C.M.P. has learned from the past and is committed to building strong, healthy, and safe Aboriginal communities across this country. I want to thank Aboriginal communities from far and wide for the collaboration we've enjoyed in many areas of our operations over the years. We are a stronger organization because of it. There remains much work to be done, to be sure. All the people of the R.C.M.P. are committed to the cause. In total, there are more than 2,000 Aboriginal people who are part of today's R.C.M.P. workforce, and we are continually taking steps to engage and promote Aboriginal employees. Commissioners, may I selfishly use this historic occasion to ask leaders of the Aboriginal people of Canada to take proactive measures to encourage and position your young men and women to come to the R.C.M.P. and take up the complex work of building safer and therefore stronger communities. Our doors are open. It would now give me great honor to present the Commission with a gesture of reconciliation. The origin of the star blanket dates back before European contact, and while there are many variations of the star design across these great lands, the symbol itself, the morning star, is meant to herald a new beginning, the dawning of a new day. It was understood by many that if you saw the morning star, the Creator had bestowed upon you another day of life. The morning star stood between night and day, darkness and light, ignorance and knowledge. And of course, knowledge is what we are all after. The star blanket, emblazoned with the R.C.M.P.'s National Aboriginal Policing Services ensign and crest, represents the force's utmost respect and admiration for the Commission, its work, our Aboriginal communities, and most importantly, survivors of Indian residential schools. You have shown great courage and strength in sharing your stories. The R.C.M.P. now humbly offers this star blanket as a sincere expression of healing and our dedication to providing professional and culturally sensitive policing services to Aboriginal people across Canada. Thank you.